Hello and welcome to another video. In this case, we're going to be taking a look at the Death Knight, the loyal undead character. Is our tank character from very early game. As you can see here, I already have him max stars on the arc light, and level 100. But still, I do not focus on this character, so it's not one of my main characters or anything like that. Don't expect, you know, don't expect 40k combat power or something like that. Only 23k. Basically, what we're gonna do today is take a look at the basic attributes, the star effects, the skills, the accessories, the relic recommendations, the relic enhancements, the relics of attributes, the awakening levels, and what I recommend with them. And then we're gonna go into the type of teams and characters that you can play with him or around here. But well, uh, I will have to make an acceleration. You cannot make a team around the Death Knight, not in a way that you will have an effective team. Okay, so this is kind of like a filler character. This is not never gonna be your MVP on their team. Maybe once every 10 fights it could be the MVP by drawing enemy focus to him and saving some ally that is gonna get the win for you or something like that. But this is not a main character, we could say. But that's for later, for the teams and compositions. For now, we can see that this character has a lot of A's on the attributes. In fact, this character is pretty balanced on everything but attack. And that is because this is a knight, a tank-based character. That means a very, defensive, protective type of character. Has A on physical defense, magical defense, speed, also on health, but a C on attack. It fits. Usually tanks don't do a lot of damage. Usually there's some, exceptions and so. And we can see with the accessories that at tier level 3, 6, and 9 you obtain 5% reduction to the damage over time, 10% health, and 10% increased defense in that order, which are all defensive stats. And if you don't know what reduction to damage over time is, the RDT, it's that when your character gets inflicted with something like poison from some NPC plants on the story mode or the expedition, or when you get inflicted with burn, with shock, or with bleed, when those effects trigger, they don't deal as much damage as they will usually do. Now, with the skills, this is a pretty basic character. All of the skills are very simple to see, very simple to understand, and because they're very simple, they offer you one or two things at most, and that's it. It's not a complex character that you can, play and match with different compositions. So it's gonna be a little bit of a disappointment there. As you can see, the normal attack is just a basic attack that deals damage equal to a certain amount of attack and health of the character. The first skill is the bonded vitality. Basically, you choose one target, you choose one ally, and when you choose that ally, the Death Knight is gonna give damage absorption or sharing effect that is basically the same to that specific ally, and can go from 55% all the way to 80 to 70%, sorry, of the damage, and it's gonna last for 2 rounds. And this plays into the character arc light that we're gonna take a look in a little bit. Basically, this means that um, when you throw the bonded vitality to some ally, every time during those 2 rounds that the ally gets attacked by an enemy, part of that damage, instead of being inflicted to the target, it's gonna get redirected to the Death Knight. So if someone throws a single target skill to one mage on your team and the Death Knight had the bonded vitality on that mage, you will see that the Death Knight is suddenly gonna get damaged, and it's because it's absorbing damage of your ally, in that case the mage. If you have the arc light, The exclusive effect is that when you use the Bonded Vitality, it grants defense boost to both the Death Knight and the target, that means the ally that you're protecting, and when taking damage, he's gonna recover 5% of health for 2 rounds. That percentage might change from the stars, depending on how many stars you have. And defense boost is a defense increased by 30% by this buff. So it's quite a lot of defense from just one skill, you know? This is gonna make more tanky both the ally that you want to protect and the tank, in this case, of course, the Death Knight. Now, I'm gonna leave the passive for last because it's what got my attention when I first saw the character. And then the ultimate now. The Blood Fury, as you can see, I don't have the ultimate max, but it's not that much of a difference from level 2 to level 5. When the Dead Knight throws this skill, he obtains from 3 to 4 stacks of shield wall for 2 rounds, depending on the level of the skill. Maximum is at level 5, 4 stacks. Shield wall, as you can see here, it's a debuff that forces enemies to target the characters with shield wall effect when they attack. That means that, for example, if you throw this skill with the Dead Knight and the enemy has, a Momon, any version of Momon on the enemy team, when they try, when they get their turn and try to attack, the only viable objective that there is gonna appear on their screen is gonna be the Dead Knight. Until the enemy gets rid of the shield wall effect, they are not gonna be able to use their single target skills to target anyone that isn't the Dead Knight. So you basically force the enemies to focus the damage on him. Of course, this skill can be bypassed by any other characters from the actual meta, and as well as almost all the mages in the game, because most of mages in the game can throw area of effect skills. Area of effect skills are gonna hit everyone on the screen, or at least 3 characters or more, and that is can be aimed towards the Dead Knight, but because it's an area of effect skill, it still hits the Dead Knight allies. And shield wall gets wasted because every time he receives damage, he loses 1 stack of shield wall. And for example, single target attacks that deal 1 single hit are gonna take away 1 shield wall stack. But let's say, for example, mate, no mate, Mage Chaledo, the normal version, if she throws the ultimate counts as a 4-hit attack. She can, in a single turn, take away all the stacks of the Dead Knight. She can take away all shield wall stacks and get rid of that defense for her other allies to take advantage of that and focus on your healer or your ranger or whatever. Also, as long as the Dead Knight has the shield wall stacks, he's gonna increase his damage reduction. That means that he's gonna mitigate part of the damage incoming to him. Can be from 17% all the way to 20% the damage reduction, which is nice for a tank. Not only that, but every time that he is in the shield wall state, when the enemies attack him, he is going to inflict the attackers with bleed. It's just 1 stack of bleed, not a lot. So because he can have a max of 4 shield wall stacks, that means that he can inflict up to 4 bleed stacks on the enemies, and can be either in a single enemy or multiple enemies, depending on how many times the enemies hit the Death Knight with their respective skills and so. And as the last effect, when this character gets to 4 stars and then 6 stars, because it's the same effect just upgraded, when the shield wall is removed, that means when the enemies hit him 3 or 4 times depending on the level, and shield wall gets expired or used, he's gonna restore at 4 stars 50% of his max HP, and 6 stars he's gonna restore 30% of his max HP, which I would say it's a lot for a tank. If it was, a ranger or a mage that has that kind of skill that restores HP for them, 15, even 30% will not be a lot, because they usually have like at most A on health. But a tank that is specialized on health, recovering 30%, it's a lot, especially when the enemies can take away the 4 stacks of shield wall very easily. Like they don't need to waste many turns. They can even do that in a single turn without even pretending to do that. So if your Dead Knight is, close to dying and survives for 4 hits after the ultimate, he's gonna be able to heal a lot and maybe even out heal the damage that he received during the ultimate state. During the shield wall effects. So with this skill, you focus on being tanky. Well, on this character being more tanky than usual, and forcing the enemy to focus him. While with Bonded Vitality, you absorb part of the damage from one ally that you want to protect. The Heavy Strike is just a basic attack, it doesn't deal as much damage. And then we go to the passive skill, the Undying Resolve. Upon death, resurrects the Dead Knight with a max HP that changes depending on the level, from 45% to 60% at level 5, but with the 5 stars, it increases by another 20%. That means that this character at 5 stars with the passive at the level 5 can revive with 80% of his total HP, and this revive can have a cooldown of 10 rounds, so can be reused as long as you keep the Dead Knight alive for 10 rounds after his, original death. And something that was, curious with me, that gave me a little bit of curiosity is why that passive was for the Dead Knight and not the Cocytus passive, the tank version. Like, let me show you. Here, on the Warriors World, this Cocytus, this character, was the first character that introduced the Indomitable state to the playable characters on the game. Basically, it's a buff that allows the target to survive a little hit with 1 HP for 1 round. So basically, anyone that had Indomitable, if it was gonna die or if it receives lethal damage, instead of dying, survives with 1 point of health, and for one entire round, just survives. It's almost like immortal. And when that round expires, if they receive damage, they die. It's a way to cheat death just for 1 round, for a little bit of time. And that fits perfectly with the Death Knight lore. The Death Knight lore was that, yeah, I'm gonna, go a little bit away from the main path from the guide just to say this little part of information, okay? Hang with me. Uh, the Death Knight lore tells you that these characters, this summoning, cannot be one-shotted because the passive skill of these characters is that no matter how many or how much damage they receive in a single hit, they will always survive with 1 HP. Exactly what the Indomitable buff does in this game. They will survive with 1 HP and they will need another hit to get finished off. So that means that even if someone as strong as Ainz or Shelter or Albedo or Cocytus try to one-shot the Dead Knight, they are not gonna be able to do it. They will at least have to hit the Dead Knight twice to kill it, which will fit perfectly with the Dead Knight putting the Indomitable passive, but they mess it up. Instead, putting the Undying Resolve, which is a complete resurrect. Of course, for gameplay reasons, it's more useful than Undying Resolve than Indomitable, but uh, on the other hand, Indomitable will be more lore accurate. Anyway, the important part here for the Dead Knight is, of course, that he revives. And as long as you can keep, the Dead Knight alive for 10 rounds at a time, or 10 times or 10 rounds for each one of the Dead Knight lives, he can, revive indefinitely. So he can come back over and over again and annoy the enemies. As you can see, this character is just a big wall. It's just a big help, a big pool of HP for the enemies to damage and try to bypass, and that's it. Offers a little bit of protection to one ally, yes, but the basic attack doesn't offer anything. The ultimate can be bypassed by literally any mage with area of effect skills, and it only counters single target skills, and not even a lot, because most of the important characters that can deal single target skills can bypass it in any way. Like, for example, we go to No Dead No Life. And what the ultimate says, when she's faster than the target, nullifies shield wall, support, sharing, and stun. The Dead Knight gives both shield wall and sharing. And guess what? She has S on speed, so she will naturally outspeed the Dead Knight. Not only that, we can go here to the Halloween moment. This skill nullifies target, shield wall, sharing, and support. It doesn't even need a moment to be faster than the target. It just straight up nullifies that. So, so literally can bypass the Dead Knight only, way of protecting allies. What does Nigred ultimate does? When she uses the ultimate, nullifies the enemy sharing, support, and shield wall effects. It nullifies literally half the kit of the Dead Knight. If you go with Metal Veil, for example, what does the ultimate says? When the Queen's Grace, her passive, reaches 3 stacks, nullifies guard and shield wall. Again, nullifying the Dead Knight. We go to Mage Avedo, for example, a character that everyone has because it was given to everyone just by starting the game. She launches a 4-hit attack with certain amount of damage, a chance to put in burn and healing down, and blah blah blah. It's an area of effect. It's gonna hit everyone, and because that single skill hits 4 times, she alone can take away the shield wall stacks of the Dead Knight in a single move. Of course, you will get 4 stacks of bleed and so, but bleed deals damage based on the inflictor's attack. So the more attack the one that inflicted bleed has, the more damage bleed is gonna deal. Because the Dead Knight has C on attack and is a tank, the bleed that the Dead Knight inflicts is not gonna be, any threat to basically any character. So she can have 4 bleed stacks and don't care about that. And well, things like that. That means that we have a tank that, yeah, is very resistant, is very resilient, is very, tanky and all of that, but doesn't offer any defensive capabilities to his allies. Only a little bit of damage sharing, but that can be bypassed by literally any big damage dealer on the game. So this obviously is an early game to mid game character. So if you're low level or you're up to like level 70 or so, you can use him. Yes, you can. And mostly what you're gonna be getting, the best of him is in the story mode, the expedition, and things like, for example, the demonic tower. The expedition and the story mode mostly because usually the majority of enemies that you're gonna face are enemies that have single target skills. And that's when the Dead Knight with the A on speed comes in play. He's gonna be able to play relatively fast to the enemies on those modes, throw the ultimate skill, so when they attack, they focus the Dead Knight, and even if you're facing, you know, something like Expedition on hard difficulty or Expedition on hell, and you're still, uh, you know, using the Dead Knight and the enemies throw everything they have to him, even if they kill him, he still revives with the passive, and the Dead Knight dying doesn't nullify the requirement of not a single unit or not a single ally uh, being killed to get the 3 stars on the expedition mode, on the expedition stages, and so unless he gets killed twice with his passive and all. So even if the enemies kill him once, you do not lose that extra star that is going to give you extra gems and all of that on expedition. And also it's good on the demonic tower because in the demonic tower, if you cannot, guarantee that you're going to wipe the stage in a single round of each one of your characters, in 4 turns, you can use the Dead Knight to again throw the ultimate, force the enemy to focus on him, and even if the enemies damage him, because shield wall is so easy to proc and he heals after that expires, he will most likely out heal any damage that he received. And that is very good on the demonic tower because the demonic tower, if you finish a combat and you have one character with 10% of health remaining, by the time you go to the next stage, that character is not gonna be full HP like in any other game mode. No, that character is gonna be still missing 90% of his HP until you heal him or until dies, until it gets killed. So the Dead Knight being able to, out heal certain amounts of damage with the ultimate is gonna make a tank very useful that you can reutilize over and over again, after stage, when you know that you're gonna receive damage from the enemy and you cannot control them with stones or something like that. So definitely the Death Knight has his uses, but is not the best, okay? If you have other tanks like the ones you saw on the left side of my screen when I was uh when I was sliding between characters, use those. But if you like the Death Knight and you want to use him, we're gonna continue with the recommendations. As you can see, in Awakening, I do not have anything. I don't have any level or any gem or rune. But basically, what you're gonna be giving him is health, magical defense, physical defense, and maybe speed. Uh, the gem at Awakening level 5 and level 20 is the same slot, the square one. So what I would recommend you is to give him the health one. Let me show you. It's gonna be this one. The energy gem HP that increases the health in percentage. Because increasing, for example, 6% more health of a character that already has over 20k health is gonna be more than a gem that just gives you like a 200 plain or flat HP. So in the one at level 5 and level 20, you can go for double health. The round gem that is at level 10 and level 25, I would recommend you to go with mostly a magical defense or a physical defense gem, like you can see here, with other characters, like for example here, any type of defensive one, because the characters, all defense on all on being a tank. The gem that you obtain, the rare gem at level 15, if you can spare one that gives speed, I will say give that one, because one part that is really important about the Death Knight when you play him is that the Death Knight plays preferably before his enemy's first turn. So when the enemies get their first turn, the Death Knight already has the ultimate on effect, it's already activated, and they are focused, or they're forced to waste some of their single target skills on the Death Knight. So you can force the enemies to waste specific skills. And of course, you will need speed for that, so you can play before them, before the enemies. And for the one that is at level 30, I will say give one that gives health, or maybe the specialized tank gem that is this one that gives reduction to the damage over time. In case that you're gonna be facing multiple types of compositions on the enemies, like burn, shock, bleed teams, a variety of enemies, then reduction to damage over time is gonna help you to mitigate some damage of those debuffs. Now, relics. The game has some recommendations. I have mostly the same, I think. My main recommendation on the relics is the champion. The champion set, the touch me set basically. But the game also recommends you, for example, the red dragon and the warrior instead of the champion. The warrior is not bad, increases the defense, and you have a chance that can be triggered once per round of receiving less damage than usual. You mitigate more damage. It's not bad. It's gonna save you from a heavy hit, maybe not, because it doesn't activate all the time. But uh, I will not say that this is what I will recommend. The red dragon set increases the max health and gains 10% chance or 20% with the sparkle set to reduce the cooldown of a random skill by 1 round when it takes damage. Can be triggered once per round. That is a little bit better because the character is already tank. It's already very tanky. It doesn't need to mitigate more damage. But instead, if he can reduce the cooldown of his skills, it's way better. If it reduces the binded vitality skill, it's gonna be able to absorb more damage from any fragile ally of the Death Knight. So it gives a little bit more protection. And if it reduces the ultimate, well, you can use the ultimate to force the enemies to focus him again and waste either more turns or more skills, and can make the Death Knight heal himself after the shield wall stacks get consumed and all of that. But my favorite will be the champion one, the champion set. increases the max HP, and gives you the benefit that after the action, after you do something with the Dead Knight, after you use his turn, he's gonna recover 10% of his max HP, which in a tank, it's a lot. And you can do something like, for example, in the middle of a combat, your Dead Knight may be damaged a little bit for area of effect skills or something like that, throws the ultimate. After the ultimate, because of the champion set, he's gonna heal 10% of his max HP. And if the enemies consume the shield wall stacks and you have it like 6 stars the character, he's gonna heal extra 30% max health. If it's only 4 stars, it's gonna heal extra 15% health, which is still a lot in a tank. So you are basically having a tank that not only is very resistant to all types of damage, but is also constantly healing. So the enemies will need to put something like healing block or healing reduction on him. Not only that, but because he's a tank, he will have this bonus almost all the match. Only when you get very deep into the rounds, like round 30 or 40, or I think even 50 on the arena, is when the game is gonna start. Is gonna be, you know, reducing the healing from the characters. So you have a lot of rounds where you can enjoy this healing without any restriction. Now, going with the relics of attributes, I would recommend purely defensive stats. All the defensive stats that you can get, those good for him. I have a Termination Blunderbuss. It has B on effect resistance, B on magical defense, A on reduction to the damage over time, and A on health. Yeah, these values are not the best, I know, but remember, he's not any of my main tanks. I just level him up because I like the concept of the character and so, and try to give him something decent. And this is for reference for you. If you can give him better, try to give him better. Like for example, this one that I'm showing you on the right is mostly incredible for the Dead Knight. A on speed, S on defense, physical defense, S on health, and S on attack. Yeah, we can ignore a little bit the attack, but the Dead Knight will greatly benefit from health, defense, and speed. Or we can go here, for example, defense, health, critical damage resistance, and reduction to the damage over time. And it's still great. Uh, Let me see another one. Well, mostly have, yeah, here this is not bad at all. S on defense, S on effect precision, B on health or HP, and A on crit. The only one that you will need on the Dead Knight is crit, that is useless on that kind of character. Or, for example, here, the Starling Greatsword. A on effect resistance, A on effect precision, A on speed, A on HP. Really great. Moving with the armor, for example, here, the good things is effect resistance and the S on health. Again, to play more into the tanky side of the character, the base has 4 A's. On attack, magical defense, physical defense, and health. The attack is not useful for this case, but all the other defensive stats are great. The helmet, for example, B on speed, not bad. A on critical damage resistance, effect resistance, and health. We're boosting all the health of the character. We're boosting uh, all the physical defense, all the magical defense, and all the speed of the character. Basically, all the attributes that had A on the character. Now, for the relic enhancement or the enchantment, I don't know the pronunciation, so I use both. One of the main ones that I would recommend you is this one, Indestructible Fortress. From level 1 to 5 is only an increase on effect resistance. From level 6 to level 10 is an increase on effect resistance and reduction to the damage over time. Remember that the more effect resistance you have, the more likely that your character can resist the enemies putting a debuff on him of any kind, unless it's a debuff that has fixed chance to be applied. So he can ignore or resist, if he has enough effect resistance, anything from like burn to shock to bleed to speed down to defense down to healing reduction, all the way to stuns or silence or towns or freeze, for example. All those control effects. So if your tank can withstand all types of debuffs, it's better because it's gonna last longer, and the damage over time effects are gonna not be able to, slowly kill your tank while you cannot do anything about it if you don't have a healer that can purify him. Other one will be, and that will be like the main one for this character, will be endless cycle. From level 1 to 5 is just flat amounts of HP. From level 6 to level 10, aside of flat amounts of HP, is also increasing the HP on percentage. It's basically the best attribute of the Death Knight being boosted by this enhancement, which is really really nice. Now, other that you could use, for example, will be uh, any kind of physical or magical type of defense. Like, let me show you right here. This one, if you can get the 42 damage, will be really nice. It's like the it's like endless cycle, just for physical defense instead of health. From level 1 to 5 is just some plain amounts of defense. From level 6 to 10, aside of the parts of defense that are plain, it also increases it on a percentage, which is really really nice. Other that you could get is impeccable critical damage resistance, so he resists more the critical hits. And also can, you can search for any kind of magical defense. And let me see if I have at least one around here. Yeah, here is the 42 damage. From level 1 to 5 increases the magical defense on certain amounts, on plain amounts, and from level 6 to level 10, a side of plain amounts also gives you an increase on percentage on magical defense. So remember, 42 mag or magical damage, indestructible fortress, endless cycle, and for example, fortitude damage. So you have more health, more physical defense, more magical defense, and you also have more critical damage resistance. So this character resists a lot of types of damage. And because this character is very balanced on the stats by nature, you can have a pretty even amount of magical defense or health, or and health and defense as well. In my case, it's not quite like that because my relics favor more physical defense over magical defense. But if you actually want to play and level up this character and so, you can try to balance the physical with the magical defense, as well as the health, and boost the speed. So the priority on the sub attributes for the relics, I will say your priority number one is health. Increase the health of the character so your tank actually tanks and resists the attacks. After that, it will be up to you what will be the second place, but from the second to the third to the fourth place, it has to be defense, speed, and magical defense. You decide if you want to prioritize physical defense or magical defense or speed, depending on your playstyle, what game modes you play, and what kind of teams you face. In my case, I would tell you that if I were to, max the Death Knight and so, as my second priority will be speed, so he can play and use his ultimate properly with this shield and so, and then I will worry about physical or magical defense. This Dead Knight is basically the alternative tank on the early game for the SR Yuri, in case that people don't want an SR Yuri as a tank, or that they don't want a Pleiades team. So you can go with him. Now, skills, accessories, relics, and all of that have been covered. Now what remains is the teams and compositions with him. As I said you earlier, this is not an MVP character. He's not gonna save you. This character is never gonna be, your best character. At least not by performance. It can be because it's your favorite or something like that, but not by performance. So it means that this character doesn't have a lot of other characters to play with in a combo. An easy combo that I can tell you is the Dead Knight with the Vampire Bride alongside uh, SR Entoma, this version of her, and the SR version of Sisita or Shizu, however you know her. All of those characters are SR, so you probably already have them. You probably can upgrade them pretty easily unless you're level, 50 or less, and they all work in the same team. Well, I mean, in the same kind of performance. Sisita has the chance of inflicting bleed on the enemy every time she achieves a critical hit, and her ultimate has increased critical chance, so you can put multiple bleed stacks with that. Entoma can boost her own basic attacks with the ultimate to deal more damage and to deal multi-hit attacks, and those multi-hit can put from 1 up to 7 bleed stacks in a single move, depending on how much luck you have, how many, you know, talismans Entoma has at the moment on her, how much effect resistance the enemy has, and how much effect precision she has. But for example, my Entoma has over 100%, so she is guaranteed to put multiple blitz stacks, like multiple. Not only that, but she has S on attack and is a mage, so she's a heavy hitter even on the early game. And Zizita has S on attack, so you have your other heavy hitter there, while the vampire bride doesn't have quite the S there. Instead, she has an A, but you will have her on the team for two things: the arc light effect and the captain skill. The arc light effect basically is that when she is alive and in the battlefield, every time bleed damage is dealt to the enemies, is gonna restore health equal to 12% of the damage for all allies. So because the vampire right can put bleed with her basic attacks and her ultimate, Sisita can put it with her ultimate, and Entoma with the basic attack as well as the Death Knight with his ultimate, you have an early game bleed team, even if you don't have any core bleed team member like Warrior Kogyutos or SSR Entoma or Limited Lupus Regina or even Jaldabaoth. This is an early game blitz team, cheap to have, cheap to operate, and it's nice, it works. Of course, on the early and mid game, late game it can struggle because you don't have a healer. But on the early game you can, ignore that and go for the healing from the arclight of the vampire ride. And the other thing important here is the captain skill. When she is alive and in battle, increases the bleed damage by 20%. This is obviously necessary because an increase of 20% damage is really good, and even more if you are low level or medium level that do not have quite the high stats. You cannot one shot or anything like that. You will need those extra. And because neither Sisita, Entoma, or the Death Knight have captain skills, then she is gonna be your only captain skill that is gonna you know be activated, and you don't have to contend or you don't have to compare if you want this captain skill or you want other one. No, it's the only one you have in that case. But if you want a little bit more of a defensive team, instead of the vampire ride also for the early game, you can go for the SR Yuri, this version. And mostly because two things: one, the passive skill, the big sister of the battle mates, and the other is that the skill of the responsible senior can kind of combo with the Dead Knight. And I'm gonna elaborate in a little bit. First, the passive. The passive is gonna be useful in this hypothetical team because it invites one of the player members of the players to deal an assist, and that assist is gonna have extra damage equal to 10% of your defense. Because she's a tank, she's gonna be able to have quite a lot of defense that is gonna be converted into extra damage. So because you're gonna be playing with Entoman Sisita that are players, from time to time you're gonna have one of those two dealing assist, even when not a single one of those version of the players has an assist capability. Only Entoma, but all the way until her SSR version, not the SR that I'm recommending you right now. So you can surprise the enemies or something like that with an assist, and not only that, but when an assist happens, Shizu has the chance of reloading, basically boosting herself through her passive. So you have like one more chance of boosting Sisita before she acts, and well, it's extra damage. The other part that combos with the Dead Knight is the responsible senior. She activates the support skill to all allies for 2 rounds, and the damage taken is reduced by 10% on her, and she obtains control immunity, so she cannot get stunned while she's on this state and things like that. Basically, what she does is that she jumps in the way of her allies and the skills that are gonna hit them. She basically intercepts incoming damage from single target skills. She can get bypassed by certain characters, like the ones that I told you that bypass the Dead Knight defense. Yes, but still offers you, let's say, quite the defense. What you can do on this hypothetical team is that you play those four. You try to have either Entoma or Yuri as your first turn. Let's say that you have Yuri on your first turn. What you're gonna do is throw the ultimate of Yuri into any enemy that you think it's necessary, so like an enemy that you want to neutralize as soon as possible. So you stun them or you try to stun them to make them lose a turn, and you have a chance to have one of the players immediately dealing extra damage through an assist with Yuri passive. After that, let's say Entoma turn comes in, you boost herself with the ultimate throw the first skill to the enemy that you want to put as many blitz stacks as possible, and you do heavy damage to a single target and put a lot of lead. Then the Dead Knight turn comes in. When he comes, you're gonna throw the ultimate. So his ultimate is gonna make the enemies forced to attack him. He's gonna be putting bleed on all the enemies that attack him. He's gonna have damage reduction and he's gonna be healing himself. When of course the shield stacks get used. After that, CC Tatron comes in. You can decide between the ultimate, the first skill, or the basic attack, depending on how much reload stacks she has and what you do, and what do you see that is the correct play. But the important thing is that for one entire, round, you have the team kind of covered through the Dead Knight defense. Then when the second wave of turns comes in, you're gonna try to use Yuri, the responsible senior skill, so she jumps in the way and defends all of her allies. But then when the Dead Knight turn comes in, you're gonna throw the Bonded Vitality to Yuri if the enemies have single target skills. If the enemies have area of effect skills, you're gonna throw it to either Entoma or Sisita, the one that you want to protect the most. If the enemies have single target skills, when they try to focus, let's say Entoma to kill her fast, Yuri is gonna jump in the way, intercept the damage, and she's gonna receive the damage instead. But from 55 to 70% of the damage that Yuri receives is gonna get redirected to the Dead Knight. So you have the total damage of the enemy being redistributed through two tanks instead of one. So you literally disperse the enemy damage more effectively this way, and you make your tanks last for longer. So they're more useful to your team on the long run. And if the enemy has area of effect skills instead of single target, well, you throw this to either Entom or Sisita, the one that you want to protect, and you absorb part of the damage that they're gonna receive as part of a collateral attack. And you still, offer them defense. If you don't like that, I have the Black Knight team. You can have the Dead Knight, you can have Peshurian that is all the way down here, right here, level 40. You can also use any Momon version that you have, like the original one or the Halloween version, or you can go with Tank Albedo, the one with the armor. Basically, what I would recommend you is the Death Knight, Tank Albedo, and then the damage dealers that you have, like let's say the two Momons. One Momon is going to be dealing assist attacks on the enemies with magical damage. Other one is going to be dealing chases and is going to function as a finisher with the combo with the ultimate of the original Momon. And what is going to happen with your tanks is that Albedo is going to give a shield to anyone who gets attacked in the first rounds, and she has the taunt. She can make the enemies lose an entire, turn, an entire round, uh, forcing them to attack her instead of throwing skills. So I would say she has a better and upgraded version of what Shield Wall is. So you control the enemies in a more guaranteed way during one round with Albedo, and then on the next round, you force the enemies to focus the Death Knight with this skill, with the ultimate. And on the first turn of the Death Knight, you throw the Bonded Vitality to Albedo, So when Albedo gets attacked by the enemies that she taunted with the ultimate, she's gonna get part of the damage redirected to the Death Knight, and not only that, but she also takes 21% reduced damage from the enemies that she has taunted. So she's gonna be mitigating incoming damage. She's gonna have a shield to mitigate even more damage, and when she gets hurt, part of that damage is gonna be, moved or is gonna be shared with the Death Knight, and your damage dealers are intact. That is the strat. Other team that you can use is the Immortal team. Well, that's how I call them. No one uses them aside of me. The Immortal team can include Tank Cocytus, Tank Shelter, can include, uh, of course, the Death Knight in this case, the limited version of Nave, this one, as well as Tank Albedo or the anniversary version of Albedo, the other limited version of Albedo. How it works is any configuration of those that I already told you has a chance to either cheat death or straight up, avoid death. Basically, Narveral can revive once per match. When she revives, she immediately gains her ultimate cooldown resetted, an extra turn immediately, so she plays instantly, and she's gonna have 60% of the total health of the enemy that has the Thunder Mark debuff from her. So even if she dies, like, she has S on health, S on attack, and A on defense. She's hard to kill. Even if she gets killed as a warrior character, she will revive, have an extra turn, and her ultimate ready to go. And she's gonna, revive with part of the health from one enemy. Aside of that, you have, for example, Cocytus is a tank. Gives counter damage to everyone, gives 20% counter rate with his shield, gives shields to the team, gives a little bit of extra damage with her first skill, and has the warrior's will. That is even better at 6 stars. The important part here is that he survives with Indomitable, like I explained earlier, with 1 HP for 1 round, and has a cooldown of 5 rounds, literally half the cooldown that the Dead Knight Revive has. So he can survive multiple lethal, blows in a single fight if you keep him alive long enough. And if he is 6 stars, when an ally is gonna receive fatal damage, if Cocytus is alive, that ally is gonna have the Indomitable effect as well, but this will have a cooldown of 24 rounds, which is very long. But this character boosts the counter in all the senses and can, avoid death for a little bit. Now then also Valkyrie Shelter, the one with the armor, on the passive offers healing, damage sharing, and so like the Dead Knight second skill. And the important part here, she has something called Time Reversal. Time Reversal restores the health of Shelter to the state at the end of her last action. So even if she gets killed out of her turn, she's gonna revive instantly with the HP that she had the last time you had a turn with Shelter, plus additional 40% max HP. What means that most of the time she's gonna revive with at least 50% of her total health. At least most of the times I see that she revives with 80% health or more, which is even better, of course. And that has a cooldown of 5 rounds, just like Cocytus Indomitable. So if she revives and you can keep her alive for 5 rounds, she can revive again and again and again. As she offers you healing, damage sharing, defense down, reduces the turn meter of the enemy, attack reduced for the enemy by 30%, extra healings, and so it's a really nice tank. Other is Albedo, the tank version. She doesn't have a direct way to cheat death like the others, but she is just incredibly tanky. She has a shield on one of her skills that gives a shield to an ally and herself at the same time to mitigate damage. The passive increases her physical defense more than usual, more than Yuri, for example, gives her a shield to either herself or the ally that is gonna get attacked every 2 rounds. Not only that, her ultimate controls the enemy so they waste turns attacking her with normal attacks instead of ultimates, and so She has a chance of taunting the enemy with her arc light. She counters, so if you pair her with Cocytus, they're gonna be doing kind of a little bit of a counter team themselves. Not only that, she has double S, one on defense and one on health. This is one of the tankiest characters in the game. So she becomes part of the Immortal team just because of how tanky she is, how resistant. Which is fitting because lore accurate Albedo is the best tank on old Nazarick. Then other member that I forgot to mention is the Halloween moment, mostly because of his passive, the no retreat buff. Basically, when he's about to die, he becomes immune to the damage that was originally going to kill him, gains the no retreat state for 1 round, and has a cooldown of 6 rounds that gets reduced by 2 rounds every time someone dies. It doesn't need to be an enemy, it can be an ally also, or even a summoning from things like Negon summoning. When he summons an angel, that also counts. So he has also low cooldown for what he has. Of course, in the late game, 6 rounds is a lot, but the early mid game, that is not a lot. So you can make use of that very, very easily. Uh, the no retreat state increases his attack by 50%, as well as his damage dealt by 50%, purifies all his debuffs, gives him debuff immunity for 2 rounds, and not only that, but only decreases half of his speed. So the only drawback is he's gonna be slower than usual, but he's gonna have way more damage. He's gonna be immune to death by one entire round, and all incoming damage transfers or converts directly into HP. So if the enemies try to burst him down, the enemies are gonna heal him instead of killing him. And he's a damage dealer. He's a ranger magical damage crit based character. So you still have a damage dealer in case that you may be fearing that the immortal teams are all tanks. No, you have a warrior with Nave, you have a ranger with Momon, and then the last one, Albedo, otra vez, again. Uh, this time the anniversary version, mostly because of the ultimate and the passive skill. But in short, she offers you healing, she offers shields, she can dispel enemy buffs, she can steal buffs and give them to the ally with the highest attack. She can reduce the enemy supreme being action points so they don't use any leader skill soon. She can execute enemies with the ultimate. Her ultimate gives Indomitable, the same thing that Kokyuto's passive gives. So you have there another way of avoiding death. Increases the critical damage boost, increases the turn meter, and so can be very useful for both Navi and Momon in those cases. And the most important part, she has two invincibilities. When an ally takes lethal damage, she purifies all the debuffs on that ally and restores their HP equal to 25% of Albedo max HP, as well as granting them debuff immunity, invincibility, high tier effect resistance boost, and that can last for 2 rounds and is a buff that can be applied twice per match. So she can save the same ally from dying twice in a row, or she can simultaneously, or even not simultaneously but continuously, save from dying an ally or two allies because she can use that skill twice. Not only that, but also when she does that, if you have her arc light, they are gonna have increased turn meter and increased recovered HP. So they're gonna heal more, and they will probably play right after Albedo or right after the turn of the one that threatened to kill those allies. And also she has S on attack. You have a damage dealer in an indirect way there, and A on HP. So she has a lot of HP as well. Just like all the other tanks, I don't have to worry about her being deleted by the enemy. Because also her skills make her incredibly resistant to the first attacks that get thrown against her. So you have multiple tanks. You have Shelter, you have Albedo, you have Cocytus, you have the Death Knight, you have a healer with Albedo, you have a warrior with Nave, and then you have a ranger with Momon. Those are the teams for the immortal team. Like, if the enemies don't have enough damage, enough power to kill them, to kill you, you're gonna kill them just because eventually you're gonna be so tanky that Doesn't matter how much they throw at you, they're not gonna be able to kill you, and you're gonna be able to slowly kill the enemies. Even if the game, penalizes or restricts the healing, that Immortal team doesn't need healing to survive. Yeah, they have a lot of healing, yes, but they have shields, they have damage mitigation, damage absorption, they have revives. They can, withstand that restriction on matches that go to 50 rounds or more, 50 actions or more. While the enemies usually have just one healer, and when you get to 40 actions or more, the healer becomes useless. If it's just a healer, if it's a buffer like Pandora's Actor, it's still useful. But if it's, an Henry or a Clementine and so, it's gonna become useless. And because they're not gonna be able to heal anymore, you're gonna be able to slowly chip away the health of the enemies until you kill them. That's why this is an immortal team. Even if the enemy has enough damage to kill or threaten to kill one of your team or your team members, they can revive, or they can protect themselves enough so they buy time for that ally to get the cooldown again of the revive or things like that. Aside of that, you can combine the Death Knight with any ranger or mage character, any character that has low defenses, like Nigredo with Sion magical defense, Beyond Health, Entoma with the same Beyond Health, Sion magical defense, mm, Maid Albedo that has Beyond Health, Sion magical defense, or Mage Albedo with Beyond Health, Sion physical defense. You know, you can combine the Dead Knight with all of these characters that are kind of fragile to give them the damage absorption, the damage sharing with the bonded vitality skill, and make them survive for longer. You can combine him with all of those characters in any composition that you have, so you assure their survival for a little bit longer. But there is, aside of that, there is no direct synergy from the Death Knight with those characters. And those are all the compositions or themes or combos I was able to think that can work with the Death Knight. There is also one more, like if you want a tank damage team or something like that with the immortal teams, you can change one of the immortal team members for the Rohamuske. And you're gonna have a team with tanks that deal damage because Rohamuske is gonna add extra damage to everyone's attacks, sorry, and skills based on Hamuske's defense. So the more defense you give to that tank, the more damage it's gonna offer to everyone on the same team. And you in with that team, with that character, you will have tanks that are able to deal tons of damage. You can put that Hamuske with Albedo and Cocytus, the tank versions. Let them do the counter attacks, and you can see how much damage they're gonna deal just to being tanks. And you can add, the Death Knight to add tankiness and annoy the enemy because mostly the enemies try to avoid the Death Knight. They see the tank, they see that he doesn't stun, he doesn't silence, and that he revives, so they don't bother with him and try to go for your other characters. So even if he dies by area of effect skills or whatever, he revives and forces the enemies to eventually focus him. So that will be all for this part. The next part is going to be the practical guide where I'm going to be going to the arena, the combat arena part, and I'm going to be showing you the different teams and compositions that I just told you on the arena. I'm going to be facing different teams to try to get some variety, using the different teams that I told you so you see what happens. And then if the video gets too long, like if it gets 45 minutes or more, I might cut it in half and throw it in two parts right after this video. Or if it's like 40 minutes or less, I'm gonna just throw it in a single part. So right after this video, you're gonna be seeing the practical part where you see him in action. And aside of that, the next guide of characters that I have planned, I think is gonna be either Nigredo or one of the SR version of the Pleiades. I haven't think on a specific one, but I still have Entomasisita missing that I haven't done their guides. So yeah, this is all for now. Thanks for hearing my awful voice, and until next time or whatever.